What if the weakness you keep fighting was taught to you on purpose? Since childhood you've been told the same story. Be open, be compassionate, lead with your heart, show people how much you care. It sounds noble, it sounds human, but look at the results. The more transparent you are, the easier people read you. The more forgiving you are, the easier people test you. And the moment your emotions take control, someone else quietly takes control of you. This isn't an accident, it's the hidden structure of power. Centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli saw something most people refuse to accept. Not how humans should behave, but how they actually behave when ambition, fear, and survival enter the room. And the conclusion is brutal. The man ruled by emotion becomes predictable. The man who masters emotion becomes dangerous. In this video, I will show you why emotional detachment is not cruelty, it's strategy. I will help you see how power really operates beneath the surface of everyday interactions. So if you want to understand the psychology few people dare to admit, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what comes next will change how you see control forever. Now, let's break down Machiavelli's coldest rule of power. What if the trait you were taught to be proud of is the exact mechanism others use to control you? From childhood, the message was simple. Be open, be empathetic, lead with your heart, show people who you really are. It sounds noble, it sounds human. But Machiavelli observed people not in classrooms or sermons, but in courts, alliances, betrayals, and power struggles. And what he saw was uncomfortable. Emotion is not just expression, emotion is exposure. The moment your emotional reactions become visible, your leverage points become visible with them. Anger reveals what can provoke you. Guilt reveals what can restrain you. The need to be liked reveals exactly how you can be pressured. Most people never notice this mechanism because they're too busy reacting, but those who study power understand it instantly. Whoever controls the emotional temperature controls the situation. This is why Machiavelli never focused on morality first. He focused on effectiveness. He wasn't asking how people should behave in a perfect society. He was studying how people actually behave when reputation, advantage, and survival are on the line. And in those environments, approval becomes fragile currency. People love you while you provide comfort, generosity, or emotional reassurance. The moment you stop giving those things, the loyalty fades. Fear operates differently. Fear does not depend on affection, it depends on consequence. That is why Machiavelli wrote that a ruler who relies only on love eventually collapses. Love asks for constant maintenance. Fear only asks for credibility. One demands emotional labor, the other demands boundaries, and boundaries are far more stable than affection. Look at a simple modern example. Imagine someone undermines you in a meeting or a conversation. The emotional instinct activates immediately. You defend yourself. You explain what you meant. You try to restore fairness. It feels reasonable. It feels mature. But the moment you begin explaining yourself, the frame shifts. The room is no longer evaluating the accusation. They are evaluating your reaction. Your explanation becomes proof that you are seeking approval from the very people questioning you. Now watch the alternative. Someone challenges you. Instead of reacting emotionally, you pause. You stay calm. You redirect the conversation or continue with your point as if the interruption carries no weight. Suddenly, the dynamic changes. The room begins to question the attacker, not you. Not because you argued harder, but because you refused the emotional trap that gives the attacker control of the frame. This is the quiet power of emotional restraint. Most people assume strength comes from intensity, Machiavelli observed the opposite. Intensity often signals vulnerability because it shows where someone can be pushed. Restraint signals stability. Stability signals authority, and authority changes how people behave around you. This is why he warned that a man who insists on being virtuous in every situation will eventually suffer among those who are not. It is not a condemnation of goodness. It is a recognition of reality. If your behavior is governed entirely by emotional impulses, while others operate strategically, you become predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate. Emotion creates reaction. Reaction creates patterns. Patterns create leverage. Once someone understands your patterns, they no longer need to overpower you. They simply guide your reactions until you deliver the outcome they want. So the first step in Machiavelli's cold power code is not cruelty and it is not aggression. It is distance. The ability to observe your own emotions without letting them dictate your actions. The ability to pause when others expect reaction. The ability to remain steady while others reveal themselves through impulse. Because the person who cannot govern his emotions will always be governed by someone who can, and once you understand that the next realization becomes unavoidable, power is not only about what you do, it is about what people believe you are capable of doing. Most people misunderstand power because they think it is about force. It isn't. Real power is about perception. The moment people can clearly see what you are, they can also predict how you will behave. And the moment they can predict you, they can begin controlling you. This is why Machiavelli insisted that rulers must learn something far more subtle than strength. They must learn the art of the mask. Human beings rarely judge reality directly. They judge surfaces. They judge tone, posture, expression, reputation. Most people never see the engine behind someone's decisions. They only see the character being presented to them. This is not a flaw in human nature. It is a cognitive shortcut. The mind prefers simple stories, trustworthy or dangerous kind, or cruel ally or enemy. And the moment people decide which story you belong to, they stop questioning it. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote that it is not necessary for a ruler to possess every virtuous quality, but it is absolutely necessary to appear to possess them. That line alone reveals the entire mechanism of influence. If people believe they understand your character, they relax. And when they relax, they stop looking for the strategy behind your actions. Think about how this works in everyday life. Someone known as the nice person walks into a negotiation. Everyone expects compromise. Everyone expects softness. And because of that expectation, they push harder. They test limits. They assume there will be no consequences. The identity of the person becomes a script others feel comfortable exploiting. Now imagine the opposite. A person who remains calm, composed, and difficult to read. They are polite but distant. Respectful, but not eager to please. People are unsure where the boundaries are. They hesitate before pushing too far. Not because this person threatened anyone, but because the uncertainty itself creates caution. This is the quiet psychology behind the mask. You do not display every intention openly. You reveal just enough to guide how others perceive you. Outside, you appear balanced, reasonable, perhaps even generous. Inside, you remain analytical, observing, calculating the incentives and pressures shaping the room. Consider a simple interaction. Someone tries to provoke you with a subtle insult. The emotional response is predictable. Defend yourself, prove them wrong, show confidence. But every word you use gives the attacker more information about how to move you. A disciplined response is quieter. You acknowledge the comment without feeding it. Maybe a short nod. Maybe silence. Then you move the conversation forward. The attack loses oxygen and the room's attention shifts away from the conflict. What just happened is more powerful than winning an argument. You controlled the narrative without appearing to fight for it. That is the mask in action. Machiavelli compared effective leaders to two animals, the lion and the fox. The lion represents visible strength. The fox represents intelligence and deception, but he warned that relying only on the lion is dangerous. Strength alone makes you predictable. The fox survives longer because it recognizes traps before others even notice them. In modern terms, this means you do not reveal every capability you possess. You allow people to underestimate parts of you. You allow them to feel comfortable in their assumptions. Meanwhile, you observe the patterns in how they behave when they think they understand you. Because the most dangerous advantage in any environment is informational asymmetry. When you know more about others than they know about you, the field quietly tilts in your favor. This is why emotional discipline is essential to the mask. Emotion makes the mask slip. A flash of anger reveals insecurity. Defensive explanations reveal doubt. The need to be liked reveals dependency. And the moment those signals appear, the illusion collapses. So the second transformation is not about becoming fake. It is about separating your internal strategy from your external presentation. The world sees the character you perform. Only you know the calculations behind it. And once you master that separation, another obstacle appears. Not emotion this time, but something far more subtle. The quiet voice inside your own mind that tells you to hesitate, the voice people call guilt. There is one force that silently controls more decisions than fear, anger, or ambition. It sits in the background of your mind, whispering at the exact moment you're about to act. Not logic, not strategy, guilt. Most people believe guilt is proof of morality. They feel it and assume it means they are doing the right thing. But Machiavelli noticed something uncomfortable. Guilt is often not a moral compass. It is a control mechanism. From the moment you were young, rules were planted in your mind about what makes you a good person. Be agreeable. Don't create conflict. Don't pursue your advantage too aggressively. Consider everyone else's feelings before your own. On the surface, these rules sound noble, but in competitive environments they also create hesitation, and hesitation is the easiest way to neutralize someone with potential. Watch how this plays out in real situations. Someone takes credit for your work. The instinctive response appears immediately. You feel anger, but another voice rises with it. Don't make this uncomfortable. Don't escalate. Maybe it's not worth the trouble. That voice feels like morality, but it often serves the person who just exploited you. While you debate what is appropriate, they move forward without the same restraint. Machiavelli saw this pattern repeatedly in politics. Leaders who tried to remain morally pure in every situation eventually lost power to those who were willing to act when necessary. Not because the ruthless were always stronger, but because the virtuous hesitated at the exact moment decisive action was required. The psychological mechanism behind guilt is simple. It interrupts momentum. It inserts doubt into your thinking. And once doubt appears, others gain time to adjust their position. In strategy, time is often the most valuable advantage. Imagine a negotiation where the other side is pushing aggressively for terms that benefit them. If you are governed by guilt, your mind starts searching for compromise immediately. You worry about appearing selfish or unreasonable. The other side senses that hesitation without you saying a word. Their confidence increases because they feel the boundary weakening. Now imagine the opposite. You listen calmly. You understand the pressure being applied, but you feel no need to justify your position emotionally. You simply state your terms and remain silent. The dynamic shifts instantly. Silence forces the other side to reconsider their approach. Your lack of emotional conflict removes the leverage they were trying to use. This is what Machiavelli meant when he suggested that a ruler must learn how not to be good when the situation demands it. He was not celebrating cruelty. He was pointing out that rigid morality in a competitive environment becomes a vulnerability. If your behavior is constrained by guilt, while others operate strategically, you become predictable. And predictability is the currency manipulators rely on. Once someone understands what makes you hesitate, they can trigger it repeatedly. They push the guilt button and you pause. They question your fairness and you begin explaining yourself. They frame their advantage as your responsibility, and suddenly you are defending a position you never intended to surrender. The disciplined mind breaks that cycle. Instead of treating guilt as a command, you treat it as information. You examine it, but you do not obey it automatically. You ask a different question: is this hesitation based on real principle, or is it conditioning designed to keep me compliant? That shift alone changes the entire game. Because when guilt no longer controls your decisions, your actions become harder to predict. People cannot rely on emotional pressure to steer you. They must negotiate with the reality of your boundaries instead of manipulating your conscience. And once emotional reactions and guilt lose their grip on your behavior, something else begins to emerge naturally. A new way of moving through the world. Quieter, less reactive, harder to track. The next transformation is where Machiavelli's strategy becomes almost invisible. It is the art of silence. Most people believe power must be loud to be real. They think confidence means speaking first, reacting fast, proving themselves constantly. But Machiavelli noticed a very different pattern among those who actually hold influence. The most dangerous players in any system rarely announce their intentions. They move quietly, observe carefully, and act only when the outcome is already leaning in their favor. In other words, they understand the strategic value of silence. Silence does something that words never can. It removes information, and information is the currency every opponent needs to predict you. The more you explain your motives, your plans, or your feelings, the easier it becomes for others to build a model of your behavior. Once they have that model, they can anticipate your next move. And when your next move is predictable, control begins slipping away from you. This is why Machiavelli warned against revealing too much of your thinking. He understood that communication is not always about clarity. Sometimes it is about controlling what remains unclear. When people cannot easily read your intentions, they begin projecting their own assumptions onto you. Some will overestimate you. Others will hesitate because they cannot calculate the risk of crossing you. Either way, the uncertainty works in your favor. Look at how this plays out in everyday situations. Someone challenges your authority in a group conversation. The emotional instinct is immediate. Defend your position, prove your logic, demonstrate that you are right. But every sentence you speak gives away signals. Your tone reveals irritation. Your explanation reveals where you feel pressure. Your urgency reveals that you care about winning the moment. The attacker gathers that information in real time. Now imagine the opposite response. You listen. You remain composed. Instead of arguing, you simply let the comment pass and continue the discussion on your terms. Suddenly the room shifts. The attacker expected conflict. Without it, their move hangs awkwardly in the air. People begin evaluating them instead of you. The power dynamic flips without a single raised voice. This is the paradox Machiavelli understood better than most philosophers. Dominance does not always come from showing power. Often it comes from never needing to display it. Silence creates gravity. It slows the pace of interaction and forces others to reveal themselves first. And the person who reveals less always holds the informational advantage. There is another layer to this strategy. When you speak less, you observe more. While others fill the space with explanations and opinions, you study patterns. You notice who seeks approval, who pushes boundaries, who reacts emotionally under pressure. These small details become the map of influence around you. Once you understand those patterns, guiding outcomes becomes far easier than forcing them. This is why Machiavelli admired the combination of the fox and the lion. The lion represents decisive action when the moment demands it, but the fox represents patience and perception. The fox survives by recognizing traps before others even see them. In modern terms, that means gathering information quietly until you understand exactly where to move. So the final transformation is not about becoming colder for its own sake. It is about becoming deliberate. Your emotions no longer dictate your reactions. Your guilt no longer interrupts your decisions. Your words are used sparingly because you understand that restraint is often more powerful than expression. When you reach this point, the entire game changes. Praise no longer inflates you. Criticism no longer destabilizes you. Provocation loses its grip because you choose when to engage and when to remain still. And the people around you begin sensing something they cannot easily explain. You are difficult to move, difficult to read, and difficult to manipulate. That is the state Machiavelli believed every strategist should pursue. Not cruelty, not chaos. Control, because the person who feels everything can be guided by anyone, but the person who governs himself becomes far harder to command. Here is the truth once you see the game clearly. Power begins the moment you stop reacting. Think about the situations that used to pull you in. Someone questions your competence, and the instinct appears immediately. You want to explain, you want to correct them, you want to make sure the room understands who you really are. Another moment, someone misreads your intentions, and you feel the urge to defend your character to repair the image they just distorted. That impulse feels natural, but it is also the doorway through which control enters. Because the moment you rush to explain yourself, you hand the frame to someone else. You begin chasing perception instead of commanding it. But when you hold the line, when you stay composed and let silence settle, something strange happens. People reveal more than they intended. The one who attacked grows louder. The one who doubted becomes uncertain. The room begins adjusting to your stillness. That is the shift. You move from reaction to discipline, from impulse to self-command, from noise to clarity. If this perspective sharpened something in you, subscribe and stay with the conversation. And comment 2 words below: silent strength. Because the man who masters himself no longer needs to prove anything to the world.